What is going on? Welcome back to the Phoenix channel. Today is Saturday. Actually, it's Saturday, February 13th, and beautiful day here in Phoenix. I hope everybody's doing well out there in the EOS crypto space. And what a day it's been. What a week it's been, guys. If you like this content, consider hitting that like button. This is going to be a chill session. It is a live session, so if you do happen to catch me on, feel free to post your comments in the chat because it's more of a um, chill session. And in fact, what I'm going to do, um, actually, before I get started a little bit further, I'm going to actually add, let's see how I do this now. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm going to add, and I think for a lot of EOS holders, this was probably their first bear market. I think a lot of the hodlers weren't around for the Bitcoin, the old cycles, the bear cycles, and so that's been I think it's been a learning experience for a lot of people. So you've all graduated. It won't be the last time we have a major dip like that, but the thing is that it's building that foundation where moving forward, in my opinion anyway, not investment advice, but it'll start to build that support foundation. And over many years, um, the price levels that we're looking at and even the levels of people in the community will seem um, significantly small quantity versus where we're going. So, I mean, you guys are doing great. You guys are stuck around amidst all the FUD. And what was interesting today, what was not even just today, this whole week, and I don't know how many of you guys actually track this, but EOS Authority actually has a tool that tracks different large transactions on the EOS network, the mainnet. And so this week was really the first time in a long time we actually saw organic transactions occur on the network. And the reason why I say that is because while there is a lot of transactions on the EOS network for EOS tokens moving back and forth, a lot of those tokens actually are done by a handful of accounts, the large ones. And the reason why I know that is because I track these. Like every day I'll go and look up on EOS Authority and I have a list of those accounts. And so most of the movements you see, even though there's a high volume of movement, it's done by the same accounts over and over and over. Today we actually saw, and this week we actually saw, it appeared brand new accounts and novel token flows that weren't seen before. So that tells me that there's other newer groups building positions in EOS. And if I had to take a guess, I can't prove this definitively, but I know in watching some other podcasts like the Unchained podcast, there is Raoul Paul, who's kind of a former Goldman investment banker kind of a guy. He runs the Real Vision series, and he was talking a lot about the need for transparent regulation in the digital space markets and a need for platforms that can meet the scalability requirements that are necessary for payment rails. And he did allude to holding positions in other projects beyond Bitcoin. And so I think that it's very likely a guy like Raoul Paul probably holds a lot of those positions in EOS and in some others, but primarily EOS. And I know you hosted Brendan Bloomer several months ago, so it wouldn't surprise me if a guy like that even took a further position in this just to front run the rest of the world as news does come out with some of these developments and projects that will utilize EOS in one way or another. So far we got Mastermind joining us on the live chat. Thanks so much for tuning in. We got Blue Sky who's in, and Mastermind says it's nice seeing EOS at $5. Makes utilizing as a currency useful. and can't wait until EOS is worth a $10 bull. And I gotta be honest with you guys, even at $10 and even at $20, I would say that's kind of a yawn for a guy like me. And I don't mean that in an offensive way. I guess the way I look at it though is, you guys have to understand that even though 2017 was a bull market in a sense and there was a lot of speculation, that $20 was speculated during a time when the EOS network, there were questions about uh, the long-term ability for the network to run, all the security concerns, the technological innovations that were hyped for EOS. There was a lot of that was still uncertain at that time. And so for EOS now to actually have mastered a lot of those hurdles, at least from a core technology perspective. I mean, now we have a relatively solid software base that is becoming more mature over time. Yes, it's not perfect, and there's still a need to have some of those features implemented, such as inter-blockchain communication. There's still need to probably have some type of a foundation or a way to fund different initiatives. And there is also still a need to have some of these BPs that are really pulling the weight get recognized in some way and have positions within the block producers, right? The top block producers, so that they can earn some revenue to continue to fund their initiatives. So there's those types of things, but in the grand scheme of everything going on, I mean, you have Cardano, you have Dogecoin, okay? You have other projects that are listed up there in the top 10, I would say, of crypto projects. And, you have EOS now that's outside that ranking. But when you look at its features and you look at its capabilities and you look at the backing and involvement it has with Google, it's very easy to make the argument that $20 isn't that far of a stretch. And so for me, $20 is kind of a yawner. And that may surprise some people, and I don't want to give my, I don't want to bias you guys on where I would imagine a project like EOS could go if it actually, some of these applications used EOS mainnet, but it's in orders of magnitude of, like, say, a $20, which I think is what most people are focused on. We're talking about a $1 trillion type solution or innovation that the world could use. And so whether it's, stacking at $5 or $2 or $20 or somewhere beyond that, I think it's still relatively early. And that's also because there's a lot of risk in this, because of the fact that it hasn't really garnered, I think, the community development momentum that a project like this needs. And I think Block One realizes that, and maybe through initiatives like the recently announced hackathon that's going to occur, I think that's starting in March and going on into April, that should help to propel some of this momentum that's needed. I don't think it gets us all the way there, and in fact, my own opinion still remains. And I am kind of a, I have my own opinions about these things, and so that's why, as you guys know, I don't accept any funds from anybody. I don't really have any direct affiliations with Block One in any way. I just kind of state my own opinions, and that's an important thing to have, I think, in the community, is to have different independent voices. Shout out to all the homies, too, who do these on a regular basis. Felix Staffelbaker, shout out to that guy. That guy has some of the best EOS content out there. He does Blackboard series and really gets into the nuances of what EOS could be, along with really the projections on the value of some of the apps that are built on EOS. And so I hope the folks at Block One and projects like Voice really take note of that stuff, because for a project like Voice, for example, I don't think we've seen those unique features really unleashed to really garner superior interest within the crypto community. Now, that doesn't mean that Voice as a product won't be popular, but I just don't currently see anything that's really mind blowing from my perspective. And Felix touched on a lot of the potential features that could be implemented that do that. So I hope, for those that are affiliated with Block One in some way, hopefully you're able to um, connect the decision makers at Block One or Voice with those ideas that Felix has in his video, because that's really what we need. We need to recognize the talent, we need to recognize the ideas, and we need to implement them and acknowledge them. And it was nice to see that Salah today on Twitter actually shouted out Felix Staffelbaker on one of his ideas. So I just want to say shout out to that guy. And if you guys haven't already subscribed to his channel, check it out. I should have in the description below. Um, and give that guy a subscription. I think he's trying to get up to the subscription limit, so he can do live chats. And if we're able to organize it, what I like to do is actually get Felix and the crypto fees and Zach Gall and just some of the OGs together on a regular basis, just talking. And it doesn't mean that everybody has to have the same opinions. That's what makes the community great, is to have different types of opinions on different subjects. And when you have more people in a forum and having a discussion, that's when ideas happen and you get really exciting potential possibilities that occur. So with that, I'm going to take a little drink here and we're going to continue. Today I'm drinking some weak stuff, but it's a little cleaner for the next day. It's a Truly. No advertisements, obviously. But it's pretty good because the next day it's a little smoother. Doesn't have any sugar, which is nice. And I've been trying to stay on a health kick here as of late, as you guys know. With that said, I've been kind of delayed on my videos because I'm actually working on a substation. And here in Phoenix, it gets extremely hot. When I say, guys, it gets hot, like it's like 120 degrees. So not having that substation done by May is a bad thing for my job. So we're trying to get everything done by that time, and your boy's working like 6 days a week, 12-hour days. It's pretty brutal sometimes, but we're gonna get through it, and hopefully by April, most of that will be wrapped up, and I have one other major job to do, and then after that, I'm thinking it's on to really focusing actually on crypto. I'm at a level where I could do that, but it was just like, these are projects I committed to, and I like to finish the projects I commit to. So that's what I'm kind of doing outside the crypto space. I'd like to know what you guys are working on. If you guys are working on some things, let me know. But that's what has been taking up a lot of my time as of late, and it's a major project. So it's not easy to build those things, and it's definitely an undertaking. And that's why I have such great respect for even the miners, these Bitcoin miners, because a lot of it is power. And so when you're building a substation, that just the transformer alone takes like a year to make the transformer. And then your build on site is probably another 6 months to a year. So it's like a 2-year project. It's definitely not a joke. So anyways, with that said, guys, it is definitely nice to see it above EOS above $5, but I think it's kind of a yawner until we really see these applications. We start to see the hackathon projects get recognition and funding, and then I think we'll have kind of a solid foundation to build upon and see where we're at. Along with these improvements like the new resource model that is in hopefully its final stages of being implemented. I think those are the catalysts to really propel EOS forward. So what's really exciting right now, I think, for everybody in the space, whether you're in both EOS and Bitcoin or just EOS, is just how much knowledge all you guys have versus an average Jane or Joe. And, as much as I know a lot of people on here don't pat themselves on the back, you're going to have to do a second pat to yourself tonight, because in addition to graduating through this cycle that we all went through, the ones that are remaining here, the other thing I think that you guys are armed with now is really up here. It's in your brain, and it's the fact that you understand. You're starting to acquire the knowledge on digital scarcity, and you're starting to understand the importance of a transparent, immutable, trustless system, and the flaws in the current system. And I think once you kind of connect those dots, and once you understand the fatal flaws that are in the current system, um, which, like, for a homie like me, or someone who looks like a homie like me, maybe someone sees me and they're like, that's just some homie. He's probably not even an engineer. But, a lot of us, a lot of the people on here I know have studied, have done their homework. So looks can be deceiving. But, when you start to understand things like rehypothecation, when you start to understand that these institutions, like a Robinhood, like their partners that they work with, basically take digital assets, stocks, and over lend them, or do some illegal, really illegal stuff where there's more shorts that are issued than there is actually available shares. Okay, that is fraud. And so that's a flaw in the system. That's like a melting ice cube. That's the same way that Michael Saylor talks about a melting ice cube with the US dollar, in a sense that you have an ever increasing amount of dollars. Well, the same thing applies to the stock market, in a sense that there is no real way to know how much securities any one company actually has, or any individual has, or who actually has ownership to it, because it's all layered, and it all forms a very weak foundation that's ready to actually crumble down. And so when you start to really realize that you're up against a very weak system, it's like attempting to build a skyscraper with very weak paper sticks, versus a building that's made of steel. That technology is superior in nature, steel and cement, that is going to last many years. And what is EOS and Bitcoin. They form the basis of this new system. And so, up against an inferior system such as the legacy systems we have today, there is no comparison. Now, it may take a while for people to realize that, just like it took most of the corporations. It took a Michael Saylor to have them really come around to holding Bitcoin as their primary treasury reserve asset. It took how many years? It took probably about 10 years, right, for them to actually make that move. And with EOS, it'll probably be the same thing. So I wouldn't expect that to happen anytime soon, like, in the next couple months. But I mean, that's why you have an opportunity. You have an opportunity to front run that. And what front running is, it's the ability to take knowledge that is asymmetrical in nature, meaning you have that knowledge and other individuals either choose not to research it, think it's a scam, don't know it exists. Whatever the case is, it really doesn't matter. The point is, you have that knowledge. So now it's up to you to decide how to leverage it, right? And so what's really exciting is I would characterize Michael Saylor, and I would characterize Elon Musk as really going against the grain sometimes, right? They're not your traditional CEOs. And so if you look at the last videos we've done together as a family, as a team, we talked about the fact that Michael Saylor was really a visionary, and that's in fact why your homie here, invested in MicroStrategy when it was like $100, and now all these pensions and institutions are buying MicroStrategy stock at 5, 6 times the value that the homies got in, right, to front run them. And the same thing's going to happen with EOS, and the same thing will actually happen with Bitcoin over and over, because Michael Saylor and Elon are just the first of many of dozens of these types of companies that'll need to do this as a means for them to survive. Because what's happening right now is you have the US government, and they are in a pickle because there's a lot of individuals and a lot of companies that are hurting, and the main weapon that is left for the Federal Reserve to keep things moving is basically printing lots of money and giving it away. So from here on out, you're going to see massive amounts of money printed. Most recently, I think about $1.9 trillion. And that's only the first of many. You're going to see multiple versions of that throughout the year. And that is going to undermine trust in the US dollar system. And it's also going to force businesses who are earning money, right, currency, US dollars, it's going to force them to have to grow their earnings even further, because in a sense that it's going to, well, it's also going to hamper the cost of business. And we're already seeing that even in my industry, where copper, basic materials, basic things for construction are rising at an ever increasing rate. I mean, these were never seen in the past. And now you're seeing ridiculous increases in cost on a month-over-month basis. And so this is really an unsustainable trajectory we're on, but it's necessary given, I guess, from the perception of the Fed anyway, to keep things moving. So it's going to force companies beyond MicroStrategy and beyond Tesla to adopt Bitcoin as their primary treasury reserve assets. Now, what companies could that be? Well, if you check the companies with the largest cash on hand reserves within even the United States, most of them currently don't have any Bitcoin adopted as their primary treasury reserve asset. And you may ask yourself, well, what is the timeline, Phoenix? And we talked about that. We said that the most innovative companies would do it 3 months after MicroStrategy did. And if you count the months, that's about right, because we said 3 to 6 months, and we're in February. MicroStrategy started doing that in Q4 of last year. Now, we're going to fast forward that, and we're going to give ourselves another, I would say, 3 to 6 months for the rest of these early corporate adopters, these CEOs, to come out boldly and maybe take on a 5% position in Bitcoin. What do you think that's going to do to the price, guys? Just it's not like there's a huge amount of Bitcoin that is available. And so even the projections of $100,000 Bitcoin, in my opinion, are pretty much a joke at this point. And the other interesting thing that is very possible by the end of this year is Bitcoin being adopted by a country. And that is not currently priced in the market. Everybody thinks that we're going to have corporations that will adopt Bitcoin as a primary treasury reserve asset, and possibly maybe in the next cycle we get adoption by a country. But what happens, guys, and I'm just asking the hypothetical question, what happens if we get both? We get sovereign pension type entities that seriously start to consider Bitcoin as a primary treasury reserve asset. And we get more corporations adopting Bitcoin as part of their strategy. And those corporations aren't like individuals. Like, not to say that the gang and people on this channel who are watching this, and even myself, are bad, but these particular groups, they have a very long horizon, as do we, as do many of us. But when they invest in something like Bitcoin, it is probably for a 5 to 10 year period. And so that supply is going to get further compressed. And when a corporation, actually, when a country starts to come out and say, we're adopting Bitcoin as a primary treasury reserve asset, it forces the other countries to begin to race and compete against them to maintain control, right? Or to maintain influence around the world. And again, that's not priced in, but I think when that happens, it almost accelerates the S curve of adoption. Maybe to a point where that S curve actually, it's currently kind of coming up this way, and maybe it just starts to rise and then it gets to a flat spot. And so if you envision that, that could potentially mean that what many people are envisioning as sort of the traditional Bitcoin cycle, right? Where it comes up and then it comes down, 4-year cycle, and it goes back up. That only occurred because it was during the adoption phases. But if you get enough accelerants with this sphere of countries and corporations and major payment processors start to get on board with this stuff, you won't have the 4-year cycle. And I don't think that's well understood. And so I would caution anybody who's on here to be careful with pumping and dumping. Be careful with speculating on Bitcoin, because you could get burned because of this potential super cycle, super adoption cycle that could occur, where we enter what some people could characterize as escape velocity, where we don't actually come back. Gravitational pull is no longer exerting a force, a pull force on the object. And so it just, you hit the escape velocity, because at that point, that object can continue to go with really no resistance and no pull back. And that's what escape velocity is. And it's the same with a digital system like Bitcoin, right? You could have a situation where you have Bitcoin, you have this adoption curve, and it gets an accelerant because of these types of events. And I think the probability is higher than, again, what people are pricing in. So I just want to throw that out. 3 months type of a time frame, 6 months max is not a long time, guys. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. And I'd like to know what you guys think. Are you prepared? Are you, have you been hodling? Have you been doing your homework? Have you been with Phoenix this entire time? And I think if you have, you're pretty much ready. So at this point, it's just, enjoying the ride and stacking sats. So with that said, with EOS, EOS, glad to see it above 5. Kind of a yawner till 20 or beyond 20. We got the hackathon coming up. We got the new resource model coming out. We have some personalities that are continuing to make videos. It would be nice to see more incentives on development, I think. I don't think there's enough incentives on development. And I think the rewards even could be a little more sweetened. And then we've talked a lot about on this channel, even a X Prize style format for these hackathons, where an entrepreneur or a team of entrepreneurs could just take a whole year to develop a product on EOS and share it with the community, and have a team from block one decide which project is the best. Because I don't know if, I guess my feedback with the whole hackathons has been that I'm not sure if you don't provide enough of a time frame, you're gonna get really a finished product or something that is market ready per se. I think by extending it out a year, maybe even more, you start to develop that community momentum, that community involvement, the fabric of the community. You give even channels like Everything EOS something to cover. You give them content. They can bring these teams on, instead of something that is a little bit more short lived, where you have a hackathon and people are working towards this prize, and then pretty much everything stops. What would be more interesting is have an X Prize hackathon, have it run for like a year, use the content over that year to build the community up, different teams, different content being made out of that, and you get a network effect. And that's really what made Ethereum, for those that were around. That's what made that fairly interesting. Is that in the very beginning, what was interesting to me is that you had consensus, which was Joe Lubin's arm, if you will, of Ethereum, that funded and provided a lot of support for projects. And a lot of these projects, to be quite honest with you, were not really viable per se. They funded them anyway. And so that model had its advantages and disadvantages. I mean, for one thing, it just, because of the funding model and the way they did it, it did stimulate a lot of interest in ICOs for Ethereum, which resulted in this entire bull run that you had in 2017, which we all know about. And so I guess what I'm getting at is there's probably a balance where it's not exactly like the ICO model that Ethereum had, with consensus pumping in the initial seed funding for these projects and then having them go out and raise funding with the community. And it's maybe not necessarily what Block 1 has proposed, where it's a $25,000 prize for going to a hackathon. I think it's kind of in the middle, where you have kind of an X Prize style format. It's a little bit longer, and in doing that, you're able to, again, grow these solid teams, solid projects, and using advisors like Marty Chavez, and bringing on community content creators like Felix Staffelbaker to cover them. You really start to get the community behind championing these projects and having them innovate features on the fly, but giving them enough of a runway, enough of an incentive time, which is probably like a year, to come up with really more of a solid proof of concept where they could test these out, they could pilot them, and we could see what works and what doesn't work, with a potential prize at the end of several $1,000,000. I think that would be much more interesting, and it's different than what occurred in the previous hackathons, because the previous hackathons were very short hackathons of maybe 2 or 3 days, where you couldn't really finish a product and it was more about your presentation. Why not incorporate in the Block 1 EOS development series the hackathon itself, so that as you're going through this certification process, you can put all those pieces together over a year and then submit or do a video to the community on your project, and then see if the funders would want to fund this type of a concept. I don't know. That would just be the way I would do it. I'd like to know what you guys think. I mean, if you were running these things, because because EOS as a technology is superior. So it's really more about how do you get a community involved? How do you get the development community involved? And how do you make it worth their while? And so for me, again, it's kind of I think it's that middle ground where you keep them involved long enough where they start to gain knowledge on how to use EOS and going through the entire series. And I'm just not sure if you do that with the time frame they mentioned that you're going to get the desirable outcome, which goes well beyond just having a product or a project being pitched. I think you actually want to see, not only the pitch, but the actual product potentially used in a pilot. And that would be far more interesting for a guy like myself. But I'd like to know what you guys think, if that's something you think would be useful, or if you're happy with the format. And also, what do you think about the new resource model? Are you guys staying on top of that, or is everybody just focused on the price? So that's really all. I mean, I got on my plate right now. Just been more busy with work than anything else. I apologize for delays in the videos. I think though, like I said, hopefully after the next several weeks, I'd actually like to do a little live stream with some others. It's always much more fun when you're chatting with other people. So if anybody here, Blue Sky, Laylee, Mastermind, Trey, any of you guys want to do a live stream chat, that is far more fun than basically just a chat like this. So if you guys have an interest in doing that, PM me or let me know in the live chat, and we should definitely get that set up. So a couple of the comments so far, and I'll start from the most recent and work my way up. Blue Sky says, resource model's cool, but it's a slow start to the full model swap. And I agree. I think there is some caution though, just given the risk with everything. I mean, we are dealing with a live chain, so that is understandable. And Blue Sky also mentions, I wish it was explained better, and that's another good point too. I think ultimately the results will speak for itself though. And so while there's a lot of theory and explanations, at the end of the day, we'll either know it improves things or it makes things worse. And like anything in life, with any engineered systems, nothing is not without trade-offs, I'll say that. So looking at the new resource model and just viewing it and saying, it's going to fix everything is probably not realistic. Inherently, it's going to have some disadvantages, but the key is, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? And I think at this point, in the community and with the technology, the general sentiment and vibe we're getting is that the new resource model would improve things over the disadvantages it presents, but we'll have to see how that actually how it actually fares in real world testing, right, which is on the EOS chain. So Laylee says, EOS is going to rock the world. It has been very painful, but it will be worth it. I could not agree more. And I know a lot of people have struggled, and I could imagine. I mean, what's interesting to me is even the price of EOS. I mean, even at $5, it's really a joke. The reason why I say that, and I don't know what analytics we have on this, but it's like, I mean, we had a lot of people that went in at $10, $15, $20. So, the way I look at it is, even a person with, let's say, 10,000 EOS, let's just say allegedly that person bought it at $2.50. So a $25,000 investment. And this was probably recent. This was probably 2 months ago. because that's what the price was. But what's interesting to me is that there is there was at some point many years ago, right, bullish individuals or institutions that bought 10,000 EOS for 20 bucks, say. So they paid almost $250,000, $250,000 US dollars on that EOS. So when I look at my holdings, I look at them from a couple different perspectives. I look at like where my holdings rank relative to others with the big bags. But I also think about the equivalent US dollars at the peak of EOS, which would be 20 times whatever your amount is. That's a lot of, that could be a lot of money for many people. And I think that just provides some interesting opportunities for those that may have extended their bags, me being one of them. We'll have to see how it fares. Definitely steel balls. Blue Sky says, are you on the bullish Telegram channel? You know, I was on there for a long time. I haven't really been on there that much. I'm mostly on the Everything EOS channel. I actually do a lot of the admin reviews late at night when we get the spam. I clean it up. I try to help Zach out to clean up a lot of that stuff because there's a lot of scam links and we don't want anybody getting jacked. So we do a lot of that stuff, or I do it in the background. And I'm not as much active in the comments section. I do a lot of plus ones, and I like to stay in the background now, and that's mainly because of my job. But when I get back in the evening, I still do a lot of the cleanup duty on individuals that like to send links to people to try to steal their stuff, which is very nice. Mastermind says, I've noticed there's more and more content coming out for EOS from new content creators on YouTube. And I've noticed that as well. Felix Stoffel-Baker, once again, a shout out to that guy. Probably one of the more consistent individuals in the entire space. So if you're looking for a real Chad in EOS, like a homie Michael Saylor, he is your guy. And it's a shame, you know, we can't get him on more channels. I'd like to actually see him on the Everything EOS channel. That'd be fun. So pretty chill night, guys. Just wanted to do a video, hang out with you guys. Hopefully, maybe the next time we can actually get some personalities on with me. And so if you do watch this video later and you're not on this live chat, send me a PM or send me a link if you're interested in doing a video with me. We can go through different topics because that is the most fun for me. I really do enjoy like another underrated Bitcoin channel, for example, is Tales from the Crypt, and those guys are pretty cool. How they go through their dialogue, and it's not really fancy. It's kind of like this channel. I mean, there's not a lot of fancy graphics. It's more just like a dialogue and a conversational narrative with some drinks, and that's just the style we need. I mean, we don't really need to impress anybody. I think all you guys have the knowledge, and it's just more about putting it into practice and reinventing these business models. So I think moving forward, especially after these projects are done, which has been like a journey. I mean, it's been like a 2.5-year journey for me, and they're now finally coming to a close, which is pretty nice. It is a milestone for me, and it might mean that it's time to move in full-time into EOS programming and crypto in general, which will mean I'll have more time to do things like this and take you along the ride as I learn different types of tools and skills. But until then, we'll just keep doing these videos like this, And I appreciate all you guys tuning into my channel. If you have questions, if there's anything I can help with, leave a comment in the video. And if you have a specific topic you want covered, leave that as well. I did have a question about some content I'm reading, and I am reading right now The Sovereign Individual. It's actually like probably one of the better books I've read in a long time. I'm about halfway through it, and I highly recommend the book because a lot of things, even though it was written about 20 years ago, a lot of things seem very relevant to today. So I'm reading a little bit of that. I am also reading just some like some like boring, or what some people would say is boring. I got some consulting books. Shout out to Rezi on this. I got a consulting book right here. So I got my engineering practice consulting book, and I've been thinking like it'd be pretty neat to just open up my own consulting business since I've been doing this for a while, and it's kind of time to go off maybe on my own. So I've been looking at consulting on the side as a side hustle, in addition to crypto, doing more power system stuff. I know there's a lot of interest on Bitcoin mining substations, and so putting together a couple of these substations now and trying to leverage that to get a role more in that domain, in addition to just programming. So if you guys know anybody who is working on a substation for mining, maybe that would be a good opportunity to get connected on. But yeah, those are like the books I've been really just mainly focused on right now, and then just working my ass off. But appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope everybody's having a good evening, and take your lady out this weekend, obviously, with V-Day coming up. So hope you guys are doing your deeds there. And with that said, this is Phoenix. I'm going to sign off for tonight, and hope you guys have a good evening. Peace.